Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee, Monday, March 10th at 1 p.m., or actually 1:03 p.m. at the Tompkins County Legislature. And I guess I'll ask first Jordan, do we have anybody for public comment? Not for today. Okay, and next on the agenda, any changes to the agenda, and we do have C and D under the Planning and Sustainability Department, but we'll get into a little bit more detail later why that was taken off. And then we'll go right to minutes approval. Would anybody like to move the minutes of February 10th, 2025? Moved by Greg, seconded by Amanda. Any discussion, suggested changes? Okay, all those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. And then advisory board appointments, we have Graham Savio as a representative to the Environmental Management Council, expiring 12/31/26. Would someone like to move that? Moved by Greg, seconded by Veronica. Are we okay?
I need to get the vote result. Hold on one second. No, it's okay.
We're good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So that was moved. All those in favor?
Okay, let me know if you need anything from me down here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's unanimous in favor of the advisory board appointment. And as far as the chair's report, I just wanted to mention, I saw an article regarding Cornell University declaring a climate emergency, I think they called it. And so I just wanted to just kind of think about that as we're going along, that one of the main reasons they declared that, I don't know if you saw the article, but was because of what's happening on the federal level, that a lot of environmental programs and grants have been clawed back or will be clawed back, they're suspecting. So what they were suggesting is that they are doubling down and doing what they can locally. And so I'm hoping as we start to get into budget season that we remember that too, that's a priority for us, and to see what we can do locally this year. And then, let's see. So let's see, now we have County Administrator's report. So are these cameras, or these videos are down, but we can go ahead and.
He's working on it right now.
Okay, but we can see this other one over there. All right, we have Norma Jane, Deputy County Administrator. Norma, do you have any report for us today?
I do not. I'm going to keep your meeting going right along today.
Excellent. Any questions for Norma? Okay, we are trucking right along. We're going to be done before we start, almost.
I'm so sorry. If you would like to take a short recess to get these reconfigured, we can before any presentations, or we can use the big monitors. It is your choice.
Okay, so the next would be from Terry. So Terry, do you have a presentation on a screen? So you were just going to talk to us? Okay, so why don't we go ahead and do that? And so that will just come about when we have to do a presentation. We can decide that then.
Yes.
Okay. So now, oh, I'm sorry. I skipped ahead a little bit. So sorry, Terry. Next is a presentation from Recycling and Materials Management. But you have a screen presentation. Do we want to go for Terry first, since you're going to talk to us, right?
I can see that screen.
Oh, this one's working. Oh, this one's working here, but that one's not.
Oh, okay.
You can see the reflection. We either take a recess or keep moving, right?
Yeah. What do folks want to do?
Let's take it. Doesn't matter.
It's recess. Yeah, it's
Okay.
nice enough outside.
All
We'll
right.
take a recess.
We'll take a quick recess while we try and get the monitors working, and then we'll try and stay in line. If people want to run outside real quick, but we'll Okay, well, so I'm declaring a recess at 1:08. It should be just a couple of minutes, folks. Presentation.
You're all set.
Okay, so we're back to the meeting. We've come back from recess. It's 1:12. And continuing on our agenda, we have from the Department of Recycling Materials Management a presentation on their customer service survey that they did. But Leo, would you like to introduce your folks here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody knows Kat McCarthy. This is Kasana Milton, and she is our communications specialist. And she had quite a lot of involvement with putting our summaries together on the customer satisfaction survey that we conducted. So I'll let her run with it.
All right, thank you.
Donna, just make sure you speak close to the mic.
Okay.
You can move the mic around.
Okay, thank you. My first presentation here, very exciting.
Thank you.
All right. Ooh, sorry, we started at the end. Here we go. All righty, so thanks for having me. My name's Kasana Milton. I'm the communication specialist for Tompkins County Recycling and Materials Management, as Leo said. So our department put together a customer service survey out to county residents in March of 2024, and since then we've been collecting the data that was gathered from that survey, and we put together a little presentation because we are excited about the results, and we'll go right into it. All right, so in order to identify the gaps in customer service, if any, for the Department of Recycling and Materials Management, we conducted a 3-month period survey, March 1st through May 31st last year. It was a 5-question survey developed in SurveyMonkey and distributed to residents through our receipt tickets from in-office purchases, poster at the scale house on your way into the recycling center, a front lobby poster as well, and then on our website, social media, and through a business card handout. We also utilized our Recollect system, which is the handy tool where folks can sign up for reminders about their recycling day pickup, and we sent out the link to the survey through that tool. And then also by word of mouth, of course, as we were talking to folks who we came across, we encouraged them to take the survey. From SurveyMonkey's data, we saw that the survey took less than 1.5 minutes to answer and had a 100% completion rate, which is always great to see.
Wow.
So based on SurveyMonkey's sample size calculator, our department was aiming for a response rate of at least 381 individuals. This was calculated with an estimated population of 42,072 people with a confidence level of 95%, margin of error 5%. We ended up getting 684 responses, which was lovely to see. However, some of these responses were not quite in alignment with what we were doing in our office, and more so the operations at the Recycling and Solid Waste Center, which is managed by Casella. So we were really trying to hone in on the responses for the folks that were interacting with our staff at the office and scale house. So we adjusted the survey answer responses to 415 as our sample size. So we'll get into the analysis. This data is drawn from those, again, that have interacted with the office by phone, in person, or through the scale house on the way into the RSWC. And we do skip the first question of the survey in this analysis, just because it is asking what aspects of the department have folks interacted with recently, and this just helped us pinpoint the information to analyze. The first question here was, please rate your overall satisfaction with TCRMM. That's our acronym for our department. Overall, 92% rated satisfied or very satisfied, those 381 folks. The other 8% were dissatisfied or very dissatisfied, or neither satisfied nor dissatisfied. So this shows us an overall strong customer satisfaction with the services we were providing already during this period of time, and we're very proud of that. It's a good place to start. So the overall was the reason for your visit effectively addressed? And overall, the satisfaction rate here was 91% with strongly agreed or agreed. And the remaining 9%, again, in disagreed or strongly disagreed, or neither agreed nor disagreed, or they did not answer the question. There were some questions that were not required. This next question was a multiple response question. Folks could answer more than one option here. So overwhelmingly, 58% of respondents to this question indicated you're doing great and there's no need to improve, which is fantastic to see. But we also are always looking to improve. So we wanted to add some more options here. Other included response.
Are we taking questions?
Cassandra, yeah, if they're quick questions, can we ask them while you're going along?
Sure.
Yeah, just a slide back. The very small percentage, and by the way, I would be in the fully satisfied category, having been to your office.
Lovely.
The 3% disagreed or strongly disagreed. Was there an opportunity for them to say why?
Not in this question specifically. At the end of the survey, there was a question to kind of open up the floor and say, what could we do to improve your experience?
Okay.
So there was
How about on the
open-ended
next
way.
one where they said other? Because other I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, so within this question as well, we saw some responses that included, improving the permitting process, actually, which is another answer here, but there were folks who included that and said, like, this is specifically what we want to see with the improving the permitting process, and we'll get into that in the next slide as well. But yes, there was an extra space there for a long answer if they did put in other in this question. Some of the themes also were about confusion with HHW collection, which is household hazardous waste. So some of the things like fluorescent bulbs that we have here, or batteries, also just like how to dispose of certain items. It's all information that's on our website, but from these responses, we've seen that there's been some need for clarification on where to go within the website, or where this information should live to be more easily findable by residents who are looking to safely dispose of items. So the next question and the last question was, is there anything else you'd like to share that you could make, that could make your experience better? And so the recommendations really included, like I mentioned previously, the hard to dispose items or items that are hazardous, changes to permits and pricing information online or in our office, when the hazardous waste drop-off days would be. We have 6 per year, and so folks, go about their lives and don't really have our calendar on hand. So we definitely are taking advantage of understanding that those are popular events that people want to sign up for. And then also clarity on purchases or processes to purchase our permits online, which is something that exists. But again, it could be a little bit confusing if that process is not clarified. There were some service enhancements as well that may not be something that we can put into place right away, but it helps us understand other services we can provide to help the experience be a little bit better, such as extending hours of operation weekly, and then reintroducing compost liners. This is something we did when we kicked off the food scraps recycling program, and then we stopped providing compost liners, and we're encouraging just putting your food scraps in the container and dumping them at our drop spots, just like that, no liner needed. Or a newspaper liner if you don't like the grossness of that. I understand, that's okay. There are other solutions aside from compost liners. And then free appliance and yard waste drop-offs and improving signage. These are items that, yes, are very important, and it's just something that would need to be thought out on a longer basis, or something where we need to find a different workaround to accommodate residents. So with the changes made in 2024, because again, this survey was done this time last year, we've had a Back to Basics campaign developed, and we're going to be publishing that very soon this year. So Back to Basics includes just, what happens to your recycling, what is illegal dumping, what is household hazardous waste, how does, what does the process look from the truck taking your recycling to our center and then to the landfill, and, just greater insight into that so that residents can have more understanding of what their part is in that role. We're very excited for that to go out. Second, we changed the permit requirement for signing up for a permit, and it takes a quicker amount of time for folks to acquire a permit in office. And this changes the amount of times that folks are running out to their car because they needed a different piece of information, or maybe even had to come back a different day. That was a huge pain point for folks who were looking to get permits in the office. So now it's license and license plate information as well. So that has been a great improvement and definitely has helped cut down wait time.
Kasana, can I ask you specifically, what are the changes? I think before it was, you needed your registration?
Yes.
Your car registration? Are you
Yep.
saying you don't need that anymore?
Yeah, at this point in time, if you're in office, you don't need that. If you're getting one online, you will.
So you can do a
But-
copy?
Yep.
So in the office, what do you need? Do you just need your license plate?
License plate and your ID.
So license plate number and ID, so people don't have to run back out and get their registration?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, really, what we wanted to keep in place is just reassuring or checking to make sure that folks that are getting permits to use the facility are residents of Tompkins County. And it was the registration that was required. Really, all we need is just some sort of proof that you're a resident in Tompkins County. The plate number is kind of nice to have as a reference if, say if there's an incident at the facility or an accident at the facility and we have a plate number, it helps us to kind of investigate an issue.
So the license acts as proof of residency versus, okay,
Yep.
which is what people are more likely to have on them. Okay,
Yes.
that's cool.
Absolutely, it is cool. And it definitely has helped with that wait time there. Okay, and then third, we have increased customer service training. This has just been, retraining of current employees, and then as new employees have come in, making sure that standards and expectations are understood and that we are treating everyone with the best customer service possible while they're at our window and in the front desk and scale house. And then lastly, the addition and use of the second window that's in our front desk and lobby. I think it's been there for maybe a year and a half, a couple of years, but there's just been an increased awareness and schedule of using both the windows to cut down on that wait time in the front desk if there is a line there. All right, so that's all we have. Happy to take any other questions, but thank you for your time and allowing me to present.
Thank you, Kasana. I'll open up for questions. Before I want to make a comment that I noticed the other day when I was there for a meeting, so that the extra window is on the left when you go in. So there wasn't a window there before, right? So that was installed.
Yep.
So that's pretty nice too, that you have two ways, and another opportunity for staff to help people.
Yeah,
So
one of
great.
the things we have known is that there's peak times often. A lot of times people will come to renew their permit at their lunch hour. And then
Okay.
that was a point in time where we had folks out on lunch. So we've moved things around where there's, we can have two open windows during those peak times where folks aren't standing in line for any longer than they have to, so.
Okay, any questions from the committee members? Rich?
Plastic film. You were taking that, but you're not now, correct? Is there any?
That's correct, yeah.
Is there any way that's going to come back, or is there just no market for it?
I think we'd like to see it come back. I think that was one of the most common kind of themes, I think, in our customer satisfaction survey. So it was right around 2021 where we had the bag project going on where stores couldn't hand out bags anymore. They were also required to take films back. So you had your box stores and different department stores. They were set up to take back films. They were set up to take back batteries. They were set up to take CFLs. So with that, with knowing that, that gave us what we thought was an opportunity to reduce some of our expenses as we went into that 2021 contract with Casella. So that's how that came about. I mean, I'll be honest, I wish we had a redo on that because, you know, that facility really is kind of known for just being convenient. And whatever it is you need to get rid of, you can drop it off there to keep that convenience. But that was the thinking behind it, was, you know, films are going to slowly decrease. There's convenient drop locations in Wegmans and, you know, all of your department stores, but we're finding that that's changing too. So I hope to look to see if we can't make some changes to those items. Yeah.
I had one more, but if somebody else. I'm just curious, and I'd asked about this at NISAC, but if there's any real evolution in the recycling of the 7 different kinds of plastic to make that more comprehensible to the public and functional, or is it just the plastics really aren't marketable and it's just going to be the way it is?
There's things that change all the time with your plastics. We of course accept 1, 2s, and 5s. Those are marketable. There's a couple others that we do recycle when we get them in. I don't know if you want to add anything with plastics, Kat, but I don't see anything resolving when it comes to plastics other than standardized to just a few types of plastics.
Do you get a lot of the 3, 4s, 6s, and 7s?
If they do come in, that all goes out as residue or trash. You know, they're not recycled. Yeah, I don't know if you've got anything to add, but.
No, I think that's just where we try to really focus our education and outreach on kind of making sure people are aware of the recyclables that can be collected, and then also kind of looking higher up the hierarchy for that waste reduction piece of saying, why do I have this in the first place, and what can I be doing to eliminate it, or how can I reuse what I have instead of needing to recycle it. So really trying to look kind of that comprehensive approach so that we're pairing that with the recycling programs.
Yeah. Several years ago, I teach a class on compliance. How do you get people to follow rules? And I actually worked with Recycles Material Management because I had my students try to figure out how do you explain the 1, 2, 5 and not the others, and do it in a way that was comprehensible and quick. And the answer was, you can't really do at least we hadn't figured it out, I don't think. There were some valiant efforts, but it just seems like that is a tough thing to explain.
I think there's the Recycle Right campaign at the New York State level, which is, I think, a helpful step in the right direction. They recognize that every municipality has a little bit of a different recycling guideline, but at least it's one place that people can go, and it even links to the local recycling guidelines. So you can go there, you can kind of get the big picture, and then look at the Tompkins County guidelines there. So that's one more tool, at least in our toolbox, but it's absolutely an ongoing education.
Yeah,
piece.
I'm wondering how we could really make a splash with 1, 2, 5. You know, big signs.
Yeah, if I can just make
I'll
a
stop.
comment on that, and then we'll go to Amanda, that we had talked before about, environmental responsibility for producers. And, we have places, local places here, for instance, even Green Star, putting using to-go containers that can't be recycled here. So it's, anyway, but it's a whole process. And did you mention, well, I'll ask another question after Amanda. Go ahead.
Well, I didn't want to be difficult, but there was that resolution about the extended producer responsibility.
A different issue.
Well, no, because I think then if you're not ending up with those other plastics to begin with, if the producer is not making them or not putting them in the things that you're buying, then you don't have to think about it. And then you don't have to think about 3, 4, and 6 or whatever. So just, reminding you of that.
Well, I think just, there was, it was a lot about, if I remember correctly, about how it was written and could it be, could it be instituted? And, but if we do, when we do figure out how to have more responsibility from the producers, then there either will be, there'll be a lot less, and you've seen me
A lot less
bring.
that people have to deal with themselves.
Yeah, you've seen me bring things, I bring things sometimes to the legislature meetings about packaging, and I'll show here, why do you need this much packaging? And I brought something in, the last thing I brought in was, I think it was a vacuum, and it was, they figured out all these different, ways to make different, like I called it like origami, like cardboard stuff, and bend it this way and that way and this way to keep it all in rather than all this plastic packaging. And so they were creative and they figured it out. And it was very easy to, make it small and recycle it. And so there are ways to do that.
I did have just another question.
Go ahead.
But also thank you for the presentation. And specifically, so it looks like you've made a lot of changes and you've taken the information. Are there other plans for changes or other things you're going to, next steps? And then do you have any plans to do a similar survey again in the future?
Well, I'll throw a couple things in and let Kat speak. Originally, I think we wanted to have this survey encompass what the county does as far as the office scale house work, food scrap drop spots, but we have curbside collection. We thought, we could do something in the future to focus in on improvements there, as well as the recycling solid waste center. So there is that. But we learned quite a lot from this survey, and we're talking about different things as we move forward. But what we definitely want to do is we want to just make sure we're making things more accommodating, especially at the recycling solid waste center, and less confusing, simplify some things. So again, with the simplifying, we made getting a permit easier. The second window, we also reduced 2 coupons. That was confusing to use a coupon at the drop-off. We went to 1 coupon this year. I don't think we've heard any grumblings or very little.
And that was for different size, like cars or vehicles.
Yes.
You reduced that down to one.
Yes,
one
but that
vehicle.
was very confusing, hard to explain. So we went to the 1 coupon. I think something like that's valuable as well. The Back to the Basics campaign, I don't know if you can ever get away from the basics when it comes to recycling. We've been at it 30 years plus years. So you almost think, well, people are getting it. People should have it by now. But we have such a transient population. Things change from one county to the next county. So, back to the basics is probably here to stay, I would say. So.
And I think I'll just add that, folded in with that back to basics is kind of recognizing that some of the survey responses were asking for services that we actually provide. So it really gave us good insights into the type of information that people either aren't getting or need to find a little bit easier. So I think those are some of the key pieces that we'll be looking at. And then just some of the other little gems or takeaways from the survey, I think will be folded in as we continue to look for continual improvement into our programs and additions, you know, the films or things like that, keeping in mind what people are looking for as we're evolving.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then I know for me, buying the punch cards, you know, once I realized, oh, you can buy those online, you know, so that saves me a trip, rather, you know, figuring out the hours the office is open, you know, and then adding another vehicle. So I want to put a shout out for that, because I'm not sure a lot of people know that you can, because sometimes we take our other car down to bring, you know, or anyway, you can get another vehicle for free on your same permit in the same household. So that is a really nice convenience. Okay, any other questions or comments from folks? Thank you, and congratulations on, you know, the participation in the survey and the positive response. So, and thank you. Anything else from your department?
A couple just very quick things. Oops, I'm sorry.
This is silly, and I just spent too long trying to find this, but at some point in my neighborhood listserv, like 5 years ago, someone posted about which plastics you could recycle and which you couldn't, and there was a request for people to write a poem or a song or something to help remember, and some people did. And one of the lyrics that says, "Oh Lord, won't you help me sort the 5 2s and 1s," is what plays in my head when I try to sort things. So you could do something with that, maybe.
What
That's
was it
all.
to the tune of?
Oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz?
Yes, that one.
Okay.
The Janis Joplin song.
Who's Maury when you need him?
We have some clever folks. So a lot of our new hires are very clever, so I can't wait to hear what Kasana comes up with on the heels of that. So.
And one more shout out, I've said this before, if you want to be an Uber recycler and get some brownie points, you can separate your glass, no tops on it, clean glass, any color, and bring it down, and there's a drop spot. You can bring it right before the electronics drop off. Is that correct?
Yes.
Clear, brown, and green, I believe.
Clear, brown, and green, so not blue.
Not blue.
Right.
Blue you should put in your windowsill anyway, really.
Yes.
There's not a lot of blue out there, and
No.
yeah.
Okay, clear, brown, and blue.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Okay, so just a couple of other things I wanted to mention. We're working through our responses for the reuse RFP. We got 2 responses in, and again, we're currently working through those reviews. We submitted all of our state-required compliance reporting on our household hazardous waste materials from our transfer station and the electronics depot. Also, I wanted to notify the committee that we have submitted a 2024 household hazardous waste grant application. I believe that's, we don't need resolution for that, I don't believe, right? Just a notification that we submitted it. And then lastly, I like to keep the committee just updated on any recent encampment cleanup in case you need it, but they are actively working on a cleanup. We received 153 tons so far this year from encampment cleanups. And that's coordinated by the city. They bring it to us, so just notification.
And who pays for that?
The city.
The city's paying for
yeah.
that? Okay.
Yeah, unless there's other arrangements made, but they pay us.
Is that mostly trash, or are there organics mixed in with that weight?
It's trash. This time of year with those cleanups, I mean, you can get, I'm sure there's probably some snow in there because they do quite a lot with the bucket loader. So there's soil as well from the cleanup. All of the scrap metal is called out of there by the city, and then any types of hazardous waste, medical waste if it's there.
So when they're scraping soil back with their loaders and things like that, are they disposing of the layers that they're scraping off through you guys, or is there another way that they process like bulk amounts of contaminated dirt, I guess I would say?
I'm not sure if it would be classified as contaminated dirt, but just through the cleanup, I mean, just the process, the operation needs to be done with a bucket loader. So you're always going to get some soil, gravel, snow with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that answered your question, but I mean, I don't think there's
Contaminated is probably the wrong word. In your business, it probably has a very specific meaning. In my mind, it just means it's soil that has stuff in it, so.
Yeah, well, of course,
Collateral soil.
to make that cleanup safer for those folks that are doing it, you know, that's really what they have to do. But yeah, there is some soil that's in there.
Okay.
And did you say it was 158 tons? Was that the number?
Through March 7th is 153 tons, year to date.
Year to date, okay.
Yep.
Out of curiosity, how many tons do you typically process in a week? Just like, what's that scale in terms of like impact?
That fluctuates a little bit with seasonality, but I think we did roughly just shy of 17,000 tons in 2024 annually.
17,000 tons annually?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much, Leo, Kasana, and Kat. Appreciate you coming today. You're welcome to stay. Yeah. And let's see, next we're up to the planning department with, was there any overall report? Doesn't look like Katie's on here, so we'll go right to Terry. And Terry has a presentation. There's no pages in the agenda about it, but it's Coalition. He's going to talk about Coalition for Green Capital Municipal Investment Fund Opportunity.
Yeah,
I looked a little bit up online, but I'm sure you'll be able to tell me a lot more. And
yeah, it's a more of an FYI. So I know you like acronyms, Annie, so I'll try and avoid using all the acronyms, but there was an opportunity that was put out through it was, I think, through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act that created the GGRF, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and it provided a lot of funding for many clean energy projects and organizations, but among those was about $20 billion that was allocated to 3 different organizations to help develop a pipeline for NCIF, or the National Climate Investment Fund projects. So they were hoping to develop a pipeline of projects that could then delve into the NCIF funding to help these projects come to fruition. And so some of that funding went to an organization called the Coalition for Green Capital. And they developed, along with ICLEI, which I don't know what that stands for. We just call them ICLEI. But that's who we do our greenhouse gas reduction software through, is ICLEI, and they're an organization for local governments. I think it was originally a French acronym. Anyways, getting off track. So they partnered with ICLEI to create this municipal investment fund. And what this fund is essentially a fund where they're looking for 2 municipalities from every state to be part of this initial phase 1. And those 2 municipalities in each state will receive $250,000 to help develop a plan and start doing a little bit of implementation on market building activities to try and develop this pipeline of NCIF projects. And so we have been working for the past couple of months with the city of Ithaca and talking to a number of partners at the New York Green Bank, Inclusive Prosperity Capital, a bunch of other different lenders, Park Foundation, and eventually CSP, Climate Sustainability Partners, to put together an application to apply to this funding to hopefully be able to start develop a pipeline of projects in Tompkins County that would eventually be able to apply to the NCIF funding. So what would happen if we were to be awarded with this? We just submitted the application with our partners last Tuesday. $250,000 would be given to CSP to develop a plan and a pipeline of market building activities that would then hopefully then be able to apply to a phase 2, which would be $2 million to then do a lot more implementation to help develop these projects. So this is all very nebulous. So what could this actually be? So Park Foundation, I don't know how many of you know this, has a building decarbonization fund, which is working to help decarbonize nonprofit buildings. It's basically $1 million split between $500,000 in grants and $500,000 in, I think, 0.5% interest finance. So it's ultra low cost financing to help nonprofits be able to decarbonize, to be able to put in new heating systems, put in solar, insulate their buildings, et cetera. So what this could do is help Park Foundation look for additional funding, to partner with the New York Green Bank or other financial instruments to help build up what that looks like, to offer more low interest loans or grants, to be able to apply to this National Climate Investment Fund to be able to support a project like that. It could help with the development of a revolving loan fund. So we've heard over the years of different municipalities in Tompkins County, including the town of Caroline, having an interest in developing municipal revolving loan funds that could help their residents or businesses be able to decarbonize in that manner. It could be used to help provide green mortgages or look at affordable housing and how it can help an organization like INHS decarbonize their building stock. So there's a lot of different things it could do. In meeting with Rebecca Evans, my counterpart at the City of Ithaca, we looked very broadly, and I think part of what this initial phase will do will help really narrow it down to a few different opportunities and what makes the most sense to help develop the pipeline in, whether it's looking at, like we said, affordable housing or the Park Foundation funding, or even something that we're not expecting, transportation, for instance. So that's our hope, and that's something that we just wanted to notify you of. If we are successful with the application, the funding will be given directly to CSP, and that funding will then go towards their work as well as bringing on some consultants. So we've been talking with
the
Systems
CSP?
Lab. The Climate Sustainability Partners group that we partnered with to put in the application.
Okay.
And so in part of the funding, we're looking at going to the Systems Lab at Cornell. Timur Dogan, a professor there who's been developing a really cool digital twin of both the City of Ithaca and Tompkins County that can help evaluate different clean energy projects. And someday we'll bring him in to show you that. That's a pretty cool tool. So we're excited about it. I will say that some of you may have seen in the headlines that the EPA Chief Lee Zeldin has been trying to claw back $20 billion in greenhouse gas reduction fund. That's this funding that we're talking about now. So if they are successful, then everything I'm saying won't come to fruition. But we're tentatively hopeful that we'll be able to give you some positive news and hopefully mid-April of this year. So we just wanted to clue you into that.
Well, thank you for the update. Any questions for Terry about acronyms or anything else?
No, I can try and think of some more along the way. Energy's full of them, right?
So was the application put in with CSP then?
Yeah.
Together?
Yep,
Okay.
we put it together along with the City of Ithaca as well.
Okay, thank you. Veronica?
First, apparently ICLEI used to stand for International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, but now it is called ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability. Anyway, thank you for the update. What is a green mortgage and what is a digital twin?
Oh, goodness. So I'll start with maybe the easier one. The digital twin it's like a digital copy of something. And so in this case, when we talk about a digital twin of a location, it's using geotechnical data, social data to reconstruct for instance, like the city of Ithaca. So what they've been able to do is create a 3-dimensional model of the city of Ithaca that includes all of the buildings, all of the streets. It's really cool when you look at it. I see your face, Greg. I think you would enjoy taking a look at this. And for this one in particular, we're looking at, it's been focused on energy and transportation. And so they've been working with the utility to bring in energy data from that. And so you can see different buildings, a rough estimate of the amount of energy that they're using. And you can make selections of blocks or locations to try and see what it would be like, how much energy a certain area is using, and what impacts to the grid might be if they were to decrease or increase, et cetera. So, and then the green mortgage part. So green mortgages are traditionally like a normal mortgage, but oftentimes additional funding is included in that mortgage in order to decarbonize that building or to make it more efficient. Now we think about it in terms of trying to take them off of fossil fuels, but for a long time it was included, you know, to just make them in general more energy efficient. So you get your mortgage and you know that the building needs a new furnace or new windows, you would be able to roll that in. And because you're greening the building, they were offering you additional funding and not raising the premium substantially over that. That's my understanding of it. Now I have a picture I can send your way on what some of the new ideas around it are. I see some suspicion on your face, Greg.
No, it's not suspicious. I'm just thinking all of like how to, you know, you got to have a lender obviously that's committed to that or some sort of funding relationship, loan to value, you know, ability to execute. I'm just, my face is the logistics of bringing that all together in practice. I think it's a great idea. Yeah. I'm just trying, my brain was just working through the complexities of a project or program like that.
Yeah, and this is where my expertise is not in this field, so I won't put my foot in my mouth by trying to answer any of those questions. But my understanding is that there are some organizations or financial institutions, especially when they were aiming more towards like the ESG, what is that, something, social, environment and social governance goals, were heading in that direction, or they would get some subsidized funding from the federal government, for instance, to help bring some of that loan to LTV or whatever they call it, value down. But yeah, I'm quickly leaving my area of expertise, so ask me about a kilowatt hour or something and I'll come back.
Go ahead. It has to be about a kilowatt
digital
hour.
Copy.
Yeah, the digital twin, yeah.
Digital twin, sorry, digital twin. Is that something we'd be able to get a presentation on, or?
Yeah, we can, there was just a presentation on it at the, more acronyms, TICP, the Tompkins County Climate Initiative, Protocol Initiative, yeah, something like that. An organization, what is it? Protection Initiative, not Protocol Initiative, Protection Initiative. There was just a presentation on that last Friday or the Friday before that. So I'd also be happy to send you a link to that recording because or we can ask Timur to come present to this committee, especially if this grant goes through. I think that would be a great thing for him to come in and present. It's a really cool tool.
Cool, awesome.
Thank you for the presentation with the most acronym salad, I would say. And then if you do a presentation on the digital twin, will that be really the Terry Carroll, or will that be an AI twin?
It'll be, an
or
AI
is that for us
version
to
of me.
figure out?
Yeah, the grant is actually going towards creating an AI version of me, so, yeah. No,
Then we'd have two.
Two, or you'll just get rid of me either way, so.
Never get rid of you, Terry.
I'll hold you to that, Greg.
Thank you. Anything else, Terry?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. And then next up, we have Abigail Connor, I believe. I'm sorry, we have contingent fund appropriation. So, sorry, but Abigail, you'll be up next. So come on up. So we have, this is packet page 18. We have a resolution from the Planning Department, contingent fund appropriation, terminal pay, and longevity pay reimbursement, Department of Planning and Sustainability. And there's a revised copy on your desk, so would someone like to move the revised one? That's Greg, seconded by Amanda. Now, is there anybody here that can tell us what the changes are?
On screen.
Pardon me? Oh, there's Katie. Hey, Katie.
Sorry. Hi, I actually haven't seen the revised version, so I don't know what the differences are there. But this is basically terminal pay for
right.
an employee, a long-term employee who retired recently.
All right, there's an underlined
The bolded section.
So let's see, I think that was just
Looks like it's just
added,
formula. Yeah.
or,
Yeah, the county administrator and director of finance approved the request.
yeah, there was just a line added, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There was a fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 4 whereases before, and now there's a fifth one added in. So if people are seeing the one in the packet agenda, there's just a fifth whereas added that says, whereas the county administrator and the director of finance approved the request from the contingent fund. That sound okay?
It looks like Katie's in the new center of government too, by the way.
It looks great. I can't wait to be there. Or her AI, we don't know for sure.
It's a digital twin.
Okay, did we get this on? So we have it on the floor. Any discussion on this? And we know this was for an employee. Oh, I do actually have a question. So the second whereas, it says, whereas the Department of Planning and Sustainability, the planning administrator retired on February 22nd at a total cost of $36,000 and some. And then the contingent fund is, where the resolve says we're asking for a contingent fund total of $39,000 some. And I'm seeing the difference is the longevity pay that was already received for the 27.5, right?
Yeah, so what happened was this employee had planned to retire last fall, so we did not include the longevity pay in the budget request for 2025 when we brought that through legislature in the fall. And then this individual chose to stay longer into the year and work into February. So that made it so that they did receive their longevity pay bonus, and we are requesting for reimbursement for that from contingent fund.
So essentially it's rollover?
It's a contractual obligation that we didn't budget for because the person didn't retire at the time we expected that they would file their paperwork to retire.
But you had it in budget in '24, I assume.
Yes, we had it in '24. Mm-hmm.
You had the 27.5. That was there.
For 2024, we didn't include it in '25 because we didn't expect someone to be hired at that kind of longevity. So we didn't anticipate needing to pay that. If we filled it with a new hire, they wouldn't have longevity pay.
Okay, so the longevity pay was for the person who left. Go ahead.
Yeah, the terminal pay, it looks like is regular pay and fringes combined, and then the longevity pay is separate from terminal pay. That's just, there's 2 transactions essentially, it looks like, taking place here. Is that my understanding? There's terminal pay, and then there's moving longevity pay from contingent fund essentially into the department's budget to be able to cover the cost, which wasn't budgeted for this fiscal year.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Anything else, Katie, from your department before we go on to Abigail? Or any other
No,
reports?
I apologize. I need to leave the meeting early today, but we're conducting interviews for our housing director position. So hopefully all that goes well.
Great. Thank you. Good luck to you. And next, let's see. So Abigail, you had, let's see, we have Abigail Connor here and Andy Zepp from
Finger Lakes Land Trust.
Finger Lakes Land Trust, thank you. So I'll let you guys get started in any way you want to, and because we had to take 2 off, so I guess I'll let you take it away.
Oh, I am not Lori Scarrett. That is accurate. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, so we originally had 4 resolutions on the agenda. 2 were removed because the applicant is no longer interested in the protection. So they're no longer eligible for the program.
And so that was the one for the Barton Farms.
Yep. Is there a revised memo? Did that go on people's?
What we did get on our
Is there a revised
desks,
memo?
it wasn't revised, but what it was is just an additional memo, which often comes with it, which is just your memo, you know,
Yeah, but
about.
this one, my initial.
Is this revised?
Yeah,
Oh.
so the memo in the packet notes both projects, but the memo on your
Oh, I
desk
see.
is just for the projects that are now being considered.
Okay, so that memo was already in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, we just have those 2 for the one project. I have just a slide that talks a little bit about it, an overview, but I don't know if you want to put anything on the floor first or.
You want to move that?
No, I had a question, but I'm happy to move it.
So,
I wanted to go back in time. The one that was withdrawn, is it possible it's going to come to us in the future, or is it?
We certainly hope so. It's a multi-generational.
Sorry, can you use a microphone so the folks online can hear? Thanks.
We certainly hope so. It's a multi-generational decision, and they just had consensus and no longer have consensus. So it's our hope we'll be back at some point.
Okay, thanks.
all right, so so next up, we have resolution, this would be making the negative declaration on the guy in Sutliff one. So why don't we put that on the floor and then you can talk about it. So let me just read the whole thing. This is resolution ID 13158. This is packet page 34, making a negative determination of environmental significance in relation to a certain resolution, appropriating funds from the Tompkins County Natural Infrastructure Capital Program for the Finger Lakes Land Trust Guy and Sutcliffe Conservation Easement Project. And Rich, you were putting your hand up to move that, seconded by Amanda. Okay, so we'll do this one first, but go ahead and talk about the whole project, Abigail and Andy.
Great, yeah, so this is our Natural Infrastructure Capital Program. And so those guidelines we updated, brought it through this committee last year. And so this is just an overview. You do have in your packet, on packet page 23, is a project guideline assessment chart that walks through those guidelines and shows how this does comply with those and makes it eligible. So this is in the town of Ulysses. The Land Trust is looking to protect 45.8 acres. It is eligible because, based on natural features, because it has annual 1% special flood hazard area from the preliminary FEMA flood maps, as well as the current effective. There's a perennial stream, and there are 2 types of wetlands on that property. The permanent protection will be a Finger Lakes Land Trust conservation easement, and they are requesting $41,705 from that. And so what you're seeing in the map there, I don't know, Andy, if you want to speak to that.
Sure. The way we do these easement projects, and we're trying to not micromanage the future, but also not create a loophole for a bad actor. So we actually survey different zones. So what you see there is a forested area on Tikana Creek, of which the 2 adjacent properties have 3,300 feet of stream frontage. That is our highest, most restrictive zone for environmental protection zone. You then see in yellow, those are areas that are currently not in agriculture, but they could be. So that they're, whether it's equestrian use, vegetable production, there's the ability to do that. Not only that, if it grows back to woods, they can clear it back out. And then lastly, you see on the Guy property, there's a pink area, and that's a designated home site. In the case of the Sutcliffe property, they retained land, the field near the front, which one of the children might build on, and then it's unclear. They own the structures there too. So that's why that's not in the easement. It's not clear whether that backland in the future, which property it may go to. So that's kind of just a basic breakdown. All that's defined by legal survey before the easement is finalized.
So you're all set? Any questions? Rich?
I did have a question, the 3,200 feet of frontage, how you're counting that? Because I noticed on the other property we were looking at, it was on both sides of the creek. This is, part of it's on one side and then part of it on both. Do you count it on twice when it's on both sides?
When it's on both, yeah, twice.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense. Thanks.
And then the property that we're talking about for this easement is, or I'm sorry, for this purchase is in blue. The two parcels in blue?
This is a conservation easement, not an acquisition.
I'm sorry,
which
the
is
easement.
Which is different than projects we've seen recently through this program. But all of the colors that you see, so the yellow, the pink, and the blue will be under the conservation easement. They just have different things they'll be eligible to do. So these are larger parcels, but only these parts of the parcels. And so the assessment value, we got apportionments. So we looked at this just based on what is being conserved.
So all the areas that are highlighted, whatever color they are, they're part of an easement. And you said, and the ones in yellow, they could be farmed.
And in the pink, it's for residential, but there will be protections there. And this blue is what's really looking at the protecting the stream.
Okay. Greg?
How do you determine between the residential and the agriculture? Like the 2.5 acres looks like it's a more densely developed in terms of, forest or growth, just based on the pictures. So how do you determine in that like 3.4, 2.5, 2.8, what's what?
It was really driven by the landowner in this case, where first we would not be comfortable with a home site that is environmentally sensitive, like a steep slope too close to the creek. But in this case, it's gentle terrain, and that was an area of poorer soils, so they wanted to favor potential agriculture. And also kind of based on, they own the property, live across the road. There was also some preference in citing in that regard, and we thought it was fine given, the nature of the property.
So just so I understand the mechanics, we grant 41 and change, 705. Finger Lakes Land Trust takes that and pays the landowner.
No, in this case, and just to clarify, the project that didn't proceed, we were purchasing a conservation easement with a significant state grant. These are two easements, adjacent neighbors, both donations, but while they're donated, the county money will cover the costs of our legal fees, land surveys, property title research, and then two different, though very similar, what's called baseline documentation studies, where a biologist will go out mapping photos. So 40 years in the future or 100 years, we have that baseline documentation report. That and then some recording fees and so on. So that's what the county funds will allow.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that.
So you said, I didn't catch all that about the survey, someone to go out and...
Yeah, we'll all those lines you see on that map will be done by a licensed surveyor and then put pins at the corners. And then we will go out after that with a biologist to do a pretty exhaustive documentation of using those pins as replicable points. What was the condition of the land? So if there's ever an issue, a generation down the road, we both legally sign off on this and it becomes a permanent record, both for ecological trends, but then if necessary, legal enforcement, that we can document the condition of where the creek was and where, what the condition of the land was at the time of the grant.
So they're donating it. I guess I don't understand. So they're granting or they're giving an easement? I mean, they're not donating all the land.
No, they're being, the way to look at it is these are essentially deed restrictions, but that have a state enabling statute. So if we just went to a landowner and said, let's do these restrictions, they'd be fine maybe for as long as we're alive. But under English common law, it frowns upon unnecessary encumbrances on the land. So New York State and most states have an enabling statute that says this really is a type of deed restriction, but it's an exception to the common law rule. So it provides guidance to judges and so on, say this is why we do this and how we do this. And so this all conforms with a state enabling statute.
And so this is a permanent easement on the property.
Yeah, on the land trust monitors, we hold 200 of these across the region, a lot in the county. We monitor them annually, and we also work with the landowners proactively on helping them manage the land and educate them, so we're not just kind of the easement police.
Any other questions? Greg? And before you get in, sorry, I asked, before the meeting started, I asked Andy if he could come back at some point soon and give us an overall on what the land trust does and how they acquire land and all these things. So before he leaves today, if we want to give him any certain questions that could be answered later or that we'd like more information on. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're learning.
This is more for Abigail. It would be helpful to have some of this background dialogue where the property owners are donating it or, granting this, purpose of the funds, those kind of things. I think it could answer some of the dialogue and questions a little bit faster and sooner. And I don't know if I missed that, and if I did, apologies. But that context, at least for me in the decision-making process, is helpful. Obviously, don't necessarily always agree with, landowners' wishes, but want to be respectful, of that and try to understand the mechanics of I'll call it the deal for lack of a better terms. But that would just be helpful going forward.
Yeah, that hasn't been a part of our application process in the past, asking for those specific budgets.
Yeah.
But if that's what you like, we can ask that in the future.
Again, I'm just one. It just, I don't know if others find that helpful. But understanding, how this works, that the landowner still is retaining, ownership and, the easement, those type of things are helpful. As I think we all have sort of varying opinions on the topic.
For sure.
So are you saying you don't usually ask for, it sounds like that's kind of the mechanics, but you were saying.
Yeah, so I think I heard two things. We don't, in the application process, we don't ask specifically 100% where the money is going because it's the question of covering the costs of some of the protection. We don't ask for a line by line from folks, and we haven't provided that in the past when we've done these. But if that's something folks are looking for, that kind of line by line, we can consider that as part of our application.
I don't know if it's general line by, not like a detailed program budget, but like a high level, this much goes to, whatever, or I think more so the substance of, what you described of, this was a landowner came to you protecting these areas, that in the background memo is really helpful.
And I think this one is distinct, so that is definitely something we could have provided here, that we've seen a lot of acquisitions with this project, with this program lately, but the conservation easements are something that is eligible under the program we just haven't seen, and they are quite different.
Yeah.
I'm unclear. Greg, what further information are you asking?
Just the way that it was, just how it's set up or how it originates, a little bit more of the background of how this came to be. I think when we looked at the last project under this program, there were some questions that came out of it that maybe could have been highlighted in background information. This is very sort of basic and straightforward, and I think that there's some nuances with each specific project that like a paragraph project narrative that was a little bit more specific might answer some of these questions faster than the conversation we're having.
Sure.
If I'm not making sense,
no.
Please tell me. Okay.
I think possibly adding that might help give us a flavor for it, because I think some of those questions got asked in the project you're talking about got asked, and I think that was kind of new to people. I mean, I know a little bit, even though I ask a lot of questions, I don't understand it all, but I do know that they originate from often families. You know, there's a person behind there wanting, for whatever reason, this land to be protected, or they've been approached, or so there is a story behind there. And maybe if we heard some of the stories, then we'd kind of get get used to them, versus once we do learn the details, it might kind of throw us off a little bit.
One thing to be aware is that the land trust will, largely aligning with the county plan, we're doing outreach quietly and diplomatically and trying not to annoy landowners in areas like 6 Mile Creek and Tegana Creek for generations. So a lot of it is, both of these cases, the one that didn't proceed and the one that did, these date back for many, many years and so we're happy to share that too, because every year as we do these very visible land conservation projects, what you don't see are staff and volunteers over literally generations cultivating trust and relationships with people. But we try to be focused because, again, we could stay busy reacting to landowners who may frankly own the land that needs the next housing development or school or whatnot. So we try to be strategic.
Rich?
Yeah, I guess I just share that many years ago now, but I did closings for the Finger Lakes Land Trust when I was in regular practice here. And I'm not sure we need that information. As you've indicated, there's a lot of family planning, there's tax planning, and it's not our business. What we need to know is that there's a significant environmental benefit, and the input we're providing is worth that. That's really, I think, what we need to know. But if we start making information public, I think we might be making your job harder. And this is a real community good to get these easements in place and to protect these unique areas. I don't think I need to know that.
Katie?
Well, kind of along the lines of what Rich was just saying, I think we also need to be careful that we're not asking this grant program to disclose more information than we ask from other grant programs, because I'm thinking, for example, a lot of our tourism programs, we don't ask a lot of the background detail, but we can certainly look at the memos and provide what is in the spirit of the guidelines of the program and kind of flesh that out a bit for you to tell the story a little bit better.
Yeah, I think if I'm correct in summarizing, I think what the group kind of wants, if we can compromise that, we'd like some more information, but we don't want to change the grant process. We don't want to ask more questions of people, but if there is a little bit more of a summary that you feel comfortable sharing, does that sound about right from the group?
And I think it would be a good idea to have further presentation on just how the whole process works, because there's certainly a lot of nuance there, and purchases versus easements and what runs with the land.
And that might help alleviate some of the questions to begin with.
Yeah, happy to come back and do that.
Okay. Katie, you still have you have another?
Yeah, it's a fresh hand. I was just going to say as well, I'm sure Abigail or me or Andy would be happy to answer any questions you might have before a meeting as well. If you want to dig more deeply into the details, happy to have those conversations if we know the answers.
Okay, good point. Okay, are we ready to vote on this resolution? Okay, so all those in favor? That we have 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor. Anybody against? Greg is voting against, so that passes 4-1. And so then the next resolution is also regarding this project. This is on packet page 40. Appropriating funds for the Natural County Infrastructure Capital Program for the Finger Lakes Land Trust Guy and Sutcliffe Conservation Easement Project, ID 13159. Would someone like to put that one on the floor? By Rich, seconded by Veronica. And so this is the resolution actually appropriating the funds. So I don't know if you want to say anything more, Okay. Any discussion? Questions? All those in favor? It's 4-4. Anyone against? Greg's against, so that passes 4-1. So thank you. Anything else, Abigail or Andy? Okay, and so we'll be in touch and about coming back to do a presentation more about what you do at the Finger Lakes Land Trust. Thank you. Sorry, I blanked on the whole name. I wanted to make sure I didn't get it wrong. And thank you for not using acronyms like some other folks do. I don't think there was hardly any in there, so. And then, next up, this is, we have Irene Weiser, the 2025 Chair of the Climate and Sustainable Energy Board, coming up. And Irene is going to give us a presentation. It's entitled Climate and Sustainable Energy Board Update Regarding NYSEG, Grid Resilience, Long-Term Gas Planning, and Rate Case. And the only acronym in there was NYSEG, and I think everybody knows what that means. If not, you can send me an email later. And let's see, this starts on packet page, my little sticky left, 46. Packet page 46, and Irene is also going to have a presentation. Welcome, Irene. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Give me just a minute to get the share screen thing going with the right page for my presentation. I just noticed, Jordan, I don't know if there's a way to manage this. The PDF that I sent you guys, there are links in this presentation, but when it got put into the agenda packet, the links were dead. So if there's a way to go back and, I mean, I don't know that you guys want to dig in, but if you do, I can send it again, or I can send you the link to the Google Doc if that works better. But the links within the presentation are dead on the agenda packet.
I do believe you worked with the Chief Deputy Clerk, Brittany Creep, when you created these items for the agenda. If you would like to send them right to her email, she'll send them to all committee members.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, I think I'm good to share. And now I need to go to presentation mode, if I can figure out. So hi everyone. This is cool.
Hi.
I get to watch it over there. I didn't know there were these secret screens down there. So I'm here today to talk about some of the activities that have been going on within CASE related to our interactions with NYSEG. And so the first thing that I want to talk about is the Public Service Commission, PSC, initiated a proceeding to study the vulnerability and resiliency of the grid. This was prompted by some legislation that was passed by the state legislature requiring utilities to evaluate their grid for vulnerabilities and vulnerabilities to climate change, and to develop plans for adaptation and resilience over the next 5, 10, and 20 years. So there were actually 2 separate studies published by each of the utilities, and so there was some kind of alarming stuff in NYSEG's grid vulnerability study. That right now there's just a couple of days a year where the average temperature is greater than 85 degrees. And I emphasize the word average because, we have lots of days where it gets up to 85 degrees, but then it cools off at night and it's cooler in the morning. So to have an average of 85 means that your overall days have gotten much, much hotter and your nights are not cooling off. By 2050, they anticipate within their service territory 10 to 15 days a year, meaning that we're going to have much hotter nights. They expect that would impact 67 substations, 500 miles of transmission, 5,500 miles of distribution lines. That there are substations that are vulnerable to flooding between 150 and 200, and that high winds will increase and ice decreases as the planet warms, and that will have impact again, you know, trees coming down or whatever from the high wind. So a lot of different kinds of vulnerability.
Irene, can I just ask you real quick, how many
Yeah.
substations do they have?
That's a good question. It's I think
Probably
that this
thousands?
is about, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's thousands, but I think that this is, I'm going to guess about that the 150 to 200 substations is, yeah, maybe 10% of their substations. I can get the number for you, but.
Okay, just wondered. Yeah, and I forgot to mention, Greg has to leave for a meeting at 2:45.
Okay, I'll talk fast.
You know, you can keep going. I'm just gonna
Okay.
stand up. It's nothing personal.
Okay, got it. CASE undertook an evaluation of NYSEG's resilience plan. So first they did the vulnerability study, and then they developed a plan to say, so now that we know these things are vulnerable, what's our plan to fix it? And what's it going to cost over the next 5, 10, and 20 years as was required by law? And our evaluation of NYSEG's plan, to summarize, there was no there. There was just, it was pretty diagrams and a bunch of words, but overall it seemed implausible, inadequate, and lacking in innovation. It didn't explicitly prioritize community or human needs. It failed in many aspects that were required by law. It didn't provide a communication coordination plan for the communities. It didn't provide details of the expenditures and timelines that were required. The heat tolerances of the equipment that they were purchasing seemed inadequate or mismatched to what the vulnerability study stated.
And this is all very basic stuff.
Yeah, this is what was required by the law and by the Public Service Commission's order, and, you know, and so the law got passed at the legislature, and then it gets passed off to the Public Service Commission to say, and Public Service Commission publishes a formalized order ordering the utilities, that the Public Service Commission regulates them, ordering the utilities to complete the following things as required by the law. They failed to give serious consideration to undergrounding wires as required by the law, and it failed to provide the performance benchmarks that were required by the law. And this was just sort of stunning. And we had both a written plan, and that's in the first part where it's green there and underlined case evaluation, is our comments that were submitted. I believe we gave these to the committee earlier as well, but we didn't really discuss it before today. And then NYSEG's resilience plan is the other green link. So, you know, this is, yeah, Rich.
Did the PSC evaluation agree with your specific findings?
It in fact did. That's the very next slide. The PSC's evaluation. We find that the plans filed by NYSEG and RG&E failed to address the minimum requirements of the law and direct the companies to file revised plans. The Commission could not analyze the extent to which the investments proposed by NYSEG and RG&E would reduce restoration costs and outage times associated with the extreme weather events because the plans did not include a sufficient discussion or analysis detailing how each proposed program or project would reduce storm restoration costs, outage frequency, or duration. We concur with CASE that strategies for circuit configurations and other local solutions must be explicitly discussed where appropriate in NYSEG's revised plan.
So
Yeah, my question was, on your slide, did they make the same specific findings? Or did they just state it generally?
They made many more specific findings. There were some areas that they disagreed with what we wanted or expected, but I think that all of the areas that we identified as deficient, the Commission did as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And so anyhow, this is the order, this is the press release of the order that you can see that all of the other utilities resilience plans were approved, some with some modifications required, but NYSEG's resilience plan had to be refiled within 90 days, and I think that's coming up later
March
this month.
17th would be 90 days, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think.
It hasn't come out?
Not quite yet, no.
Okay.
Yeah,
They're running to the wire.
It's last minute. It'll be last minute, so stay tuned. So that's just one piece of what I'm here to talk about today. But I hope that it frames up for you the very significant challenges we have with this utility. In their last rate case, I was actually party to writing and offering a motion to the Public Service Commission that their entire rate case be dismissed because it failed to provide details that were required by law. It was rejected, and I don't want to get too much into that, but it has, that motion was again backed up by Department of Public Service staff review of the rate case. In fact, it was premised on that because I don't know the sophisticated stuff that they look at. But in light of their comments, we said, they should go back to the drawing board and send us a sufficient plan. The motion to dismiss was refused because it was deemed not timely, but it has been influential for other rate case filings that the commission has now been giving warnings to the utilities that they need to have more sufficient information in their things or that they would be rejected. But in any case, so we have significant challenges with our utility in their planning stuff. Having said that, there's a very interesting and I think exciting opportunity that's come about in a different proceeding that the Public Service Commission has ordered all of the gas utilities to develop plans for reducing their greenhouse gas emissions over the next 20 years, and that they would be revised every 3 years, including, so there were many of us involved, including an independent consultant. The planning office, Terry and Haley were involved. I was involved as Fossil Free Tompkins, many stakeholder groups. Part of the plan that was approved by the Public Service Commission was for a pilot study to happen here for a tabletop exercise. So I want to be really clear that this is not anything that is immediately going to be happening except for the planning of it. It's a very complex, sophisticated planning that has to happen. So when you think about a gas system, this is an oversimplification, but think of it sort of like a tree. There is a trunk of the main pipeline, and then there's branches off of the trunk to various, sub-roads, and then, individual things to subdivisions or dead-end streets, and then obviously all the way out to individual houses. So there's this idea that's been forwarded by any number of groups and consultants about strategic contraction, I'll call it, of the gas system. So in effect, start pruning at the ends. The problem being that over time, as we come off of gas, we don't want to have pipes still in the ground, right? We pay for all of the infrastructure of our utilities, whether it's wires to deliver the electricity or the pipes to deliver the gas. That's what our rates are for. And so we're paying for a lot of infrastructure. As we remove people from the infrastructure for switching over to heat pumps, there's less people left to pay for maintaining the infrastructure. So it would be smart if we reduced the amount of infrastructure that needed to be maintained at the same time as we're reducing the number of customers that are using the infrastructure. And so the idea is to prune the system back, possibly also do things like there's a pilot study happening downtown for what's called a district heating system, or are you, in their language is, here's an acronym for you, U10, Utility Thermal Energy Network. But it's basically to hook a bunch of buildings over in the south side to a geothermal system that they're all sharing the system and pipes with to, again, have an economy of scale. It also provides a lot of jobs for labor, which is much appreciated. But so anyhow, the Public Service Commission has approved for us to do a tabletop study to imagine how we would strategically decommission or contract the gas system over time. And
is that just for in the county?
It's just for in the county, but it's a really exciting project. I mean, it's attracting not only statewide but some international national attention, because this is something that has been theorized about pruning, but nobody's actually sat down to figure out how do you really do it. And it's not quite as simple as just pruning back the branches, because in a tree, there's no interconnection from one branch to another. In a pipeline system, there's a lot of looping that happens and pressure differentials. And then also, so you have to manage all of that. Then also you have to manage the electric system, because it needs to have enough capacity to serve the houses that are becoming, or houses or buildings that are becoming electrified. And so it's really kind of an exciting and sophisticated undertaking to figure out how would you go about doing this. Terry talked about the digital twin. We're just super fortunate here to have that kind of resource available to contribute to the discussion in the study. And so anyhow, I just wanted to let you know that this is coming at the end of this month. There's a first meeting with NYSEG on this. They call it a technical conference, but we expect a series of meetings over the next many months to help to develop this plan. And
meetings, so this is with, who are meeting with NYSEG?
Well, myself from Fossil Free Tompkins, Terry and or Haley from the county. There's people from the Campaign for Renewable Energy, which is another local group here. There's the Sierra Club, Earth Justice, the AGREE, which is the Alliance for a Green Economy, Rocky Mountain Institute, possibly some folks from Massachusetts, a lot of stakeholders.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm sure multiple interveners will be involved. They represent industrial customers in the upstate area.
City representative?
Yes. Yeah, Rebecca. Representing the city. So yeah, it's a big deal and exciting thing. There may be, and I don't know yet how this is going to go, but there may be within the rate case. So I'll just go to the next slide. We expect them to file a rate case in May of this year, at least. That's how it usually goes. There may be, as a component of the rate case, if we, for example, identify some neighborhoods where there's a dead-end street with, 6 houses on it, and there may be some thought to scaling back the pipe on that street. There may be some funding within the rate case made available to do that. As we get further into the process of developing the plan, we're also going to involve many more local stakeholders, whether it's, from the Chamber of Commerce or, individual homeowners, if it's or a landlords association. I mean, there's going to be a lot of different kinds of stakeholder groups that would have interest as this plan gets a little bit more developed. Right now, it's technical and wonky and probably not for general public. I wouldn't mind if there are members of the public that wanted to join, but at this point, it's a lot more wonky and less relevant to exactly what's going to go on. So anyhow, we expect NYSEG's rate case to be filed in May. It takes theoretically 11 months from the time that the rate case is filed. And just to explain a little bit more, the rate case is a proposal for 1 year of projects and funding that the utility wants to do. Then it goes into a negotiation session where typically what happens is rather than the 1 year plan, it gets negotiated to be a 3-year plan with more money involved, blah, blah, blah.
I'm sorry, but they initially go in with asking for a 1-year plan.
Initially, they file a 1-year plan. It's really crazy, yeah.
Not a 3-year, yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually something that I'm going to be talking with Anna's office about, possibly some changes there, that their initial filing and the, whatever comes out of it should all be 3-year and not a 1 year. And so anyhow, parts of both the resilience plan and the gas plan may be expected to be incorporated into the next rate plan, and we will know more about that. So they file their proposal in May. It won't be approved until some point in 2026, if it gets approved. And, presumably for 3 years, 26, 27, and 28. Terry may have stepped up because his office has been really great in their participation in both the rate case effort and the resiliency effort, and I expect also will be very involved in the gas planning. So I don't know, Terry, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, just a couple comments. So we have participated in these things, as Irene said, and filed comments on some of the different ones. Big kudos to Case. I mean, Irene may have undersold it a little bit that, this was one of the few resiliency plans that actually got real scrutiny applied to it. And I think that's in large part due to Case. And so that they were able to have an impact really speaks volumes to the advisory board. On the long-term gas plan and the tabletop exercise that Irene's talking about, in talking with Katie, who I don't think is on here anymore, she asked that the IDA be made aware of that. So we have made the IDA aware of that tabletop exercise that's going on. Great. I don't know that they'll attend, but they are aware. And then just on the rate case, we do plan on bringing more information to either Peak or the legislature as a whole on the rate case. After the last rate case that we participated in, there was interest from the legislators to be more informed and to have some, to provide some direction on staff in advocating for different things. And so we'll be meeting actually later this week with the county attorney to understand how we can provide some information and context to legislators, since the actual negotiation process is all subject to non-disclosure. So it makes it very difficult to publicly talk about things, obviously. And so short of making every legislator a party to the case and then going into executive session, we're trying to figure out what other options we might have. So we'll get back to you on some more of that later, hopefully at our next meeting even.
Rich?
Yeah, it does seem like the resiliency, I mean, it's be careful what you wish for, perhaps, that when the rate case comes forward, do you have any sense of what they're going to propose in terms of rate increases to accomplish the resiliency? It seems like that's a pretty ambitious program.
I don't have any sense of what the costs will be. I will say that there were quite a number of costs in this rate case that we're now living through. That was in, what was that, filed in 2022. That there were a lot of resiliency improvements incorporated into that, and I expect that we'll continue to see resiliency improvements going forward.
Just to add on, I mean, we are seeing some of it already. So we've been hearing a lot about people having higher than what they expected NYSEG bills recently. And some of that has to do with a recovery charge that's been added to bills. So if you look at your most recent NYSEG bill, it would have to be after, I think, February, or after February 23rd. There's now a surcharge on there that's due to a securitization that NYSEG was able to recover for what they're calling the NYSEG Storm Recovery LLC. And so it's adding anywhere from, around 1% to folks' bills. So you're already starting to see the cost of some of this stuff, not necessarily in resiliency, but just in recovery. So you either see it on the front end or you see it on the back end, and it's often cheaper if it's on the front end.
And then on the gas plan tabletop exercise, it reminds me of Detroit, where they saw a substantial decrease in their population to the point that they did not have enough ratepayers to support the system.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a smaller area. And you're going to, I don't know how you do the tabletop exercise without considering islands, that somebody is going to need gas service in the middle of a lot of people who don't. And do you cut them off, I guess, I guess that's the tabletop.
Yeah, that is the tabletop. There's, a variety of ideas of how to approach that. Certainly there's heavy industry that could need a flame, and there's recognition of that, how to make their use more efficient, heat recovery that could, then be used to heat their buildings, or, various things to improve the efficiency of their use of gas. There's right now a program in place with NYSEG for, I'm trying to remember what they call it. It's on days where there's peak demand of gas and they're worried that they're not going to have, Well, it's a kind of demand response, but they actually, you get under contract with them, you sign up with them. This is for large consumers. Can sign up to be paid extra by NYSEG to do fuel switching, to switch from gas to oil or gas to propane.
Or battery
during those
bank.
times.
Or a battery bank, or is that just for electricity?
No,
That's just for electricity.
This is for again, usually, high use customers that haven't yet modified to being electrified. This is for heating and industrial uses. That there's a contract that gets entered with NYSEG to go off of their high consumption at a time when it's needed to heat homes and schools and whatnot. And they get paid extra for doing that. NYSEG pays the difference in the cost from what it would cost for gas supply to what it costs for the oil and to maintain a secondary system. And so they're appropriately compensated. And, we'll have to explore options similar to that in some instances.
And I guess we don't need to get into it here, but it's going to be a complicated exercise.
Yeah, it's super complicated.
Yeah.
It's very, very complicated. The alternative, though, and what you described in Detroit, is what this tabletop hopes to avoid. It's actually called the utility death spiral. If you lose too many customers from, as you lose incrementally more customers from your system, maintaining the system, the remaining customers are paying more and more of those costs. And so at some point you reach a point where it's more expensive to stay on the system than to exit, and at which point you have massive exit from the system and billions and billions in stranded assets. So while I don't consider myself in the business of trying to protect a corporation's bottom line, there is a reality, and those stranded assets may well come back to haunt us as state or regional taxpayers. So, it's in everybody's interest to find ways to reduce the amount of stranded assets that occur. And that's kind of one of the goals of this.
Any other questions? I just want to say, we talked about this at the case board, but I just want to say thanks again, to the case board, to the county for getting involved, in the rate case and putting forth recommendations. I mean, we are so fortunate to have experts, again, at the planning department and on the case board that are looking after the interests of the county. And then this is looking at being a role model for other municipalities too, especially with having the tabletop exercise. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, well, that's all for that. So thank you very much. And lastly, do we have any committee member reports from any advisory boards? Anything that you've read? Okay, any acronyms you want to throw out at us? Okay, I guess anything else before we adjourn today from anybody? Okay, we are adjourned at 2:52, and thanks everybody for coming today.